You never forget the moment when your own family looks at you like a stranger, or worse, like a threat. I'm Harper Lane. I'm 34 born and raised in Silverwood, Oregon, a sleepy lakeside town most folks haven't heard of unless they've been lost on the I-5. I work as a freelance interior designer, 15 years of making dull spaces a little brighter. It pays the bills, and sometimes, if I'm lucky, funds a good Pinot and a decent pair of boots. My life had been humming along pretty quietly, until the day I sat in a mahogany-paneled office on Main Street, clutching a lukewarm coffee, waiting to hear my late parents' will. My father passed 2 months ago, heart failure. My mother followed soon after, some said from grief, though I'd argue it was more from decades of stress caused by my older brother Nathan. My parents were well off, the kind of old money family who put great stock in appearances, summered at the lake house, and hosted garden parties even when nobody wanted to come. There we sat, me, Nathan, our Aunt Margaret, Dad's sister, professional gossip, cousin Julia, a.k.a. drama queen in chief, and an assortment of second cousins who only came around for free wine and inheritances. And then there was Mr. Halpern, our family lawyer, a mild man with the kind of mustache that begged to be trusted. He cleared his throat and began reading. To my beloved son, Nathaniel Lane, I leave the family business, all bank accounts, investment portfolios, and the contents of our primary residence. I blinked. My pulse started drumming in my ears. The words rolled on, and it quickly became clear. Everything was going to Nathan. Not a word about me. No mention of the lake house, no small bequest, no jewelry, no sentimental keepsake, nothing. My aunt smirked behind her tissue. Julia shot me a sideways glance, pity or triumph, I couldn't tell. Nathan? Well, he just sat there smug like a cat who'd caught the biggest mouse. Mr. Halpern's voice wavered at the end. This concludes the reading of the will. Silence. Then Nathan leaned back, stretching theatrically. Well, he said that clears that up. He smirked my way. Guess some people didn't make the cut. I could practically hear Julia's eye roll, and Aunt Margaret tittered in her seat. I stood up slowly, my heart racing. My fingers tightened around the folder in my lap, a folder that held one little piece of paper Nathan didn't know about. The deed. The lake house, that weathered, beautiful old house by the water, wasn't my parents' to give away. My grandfather, bless his foresight, had deeded it to me years ago before dementia took him. Tucked away, notarized, legally binding, my name alone. I hadn't flaunted it. Never needed to. But sitting in that room, hearing my parents' final words erase me from their legacy, something in me shifted. I walked to the door. Nathan called after me, voice dripping with condescension, going to pout. Harper. I turned slightly. No Nathan, just going home. And with that, I stepped out into the sharp autumn air, heart pounding, because soon he would learn that not everything was his after all. The drive out to the lake house always gave me time to think, and right now my brain was spinning like a blender on high. Leaves spiraled down in bursts of gold and crimson as I wound through the back roads. The sky was that heavy Oregon gray that promised rain, perfect for brooding, which I admit I was doing quite well. I parked beside the faded white boathouse and stepped out the gravel, crunching under my boots. There it stood, the house. 3 stories of weathered, charmed timber beams, wrap-around porch lake glimmering just beyond. My sanctuary. My inheritance, not from my parents, but from Grandpa Lane, who'd seen something in me long before my parents wrote me off as the artsy disappointment. I still remembered that summer afternoon 7 years ago. Grandpa sitting in his old recliner. Voice gruff but clear. Your father's blinded by appearances. Nathan's entitled, this place, it's yours, Harper. You're the only one who loves it for what it is. And then he handed me the deed already notarized. I thought it was sentimental, just-in-case gesture. And I'd never imagined it would come to this. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The scent of cedar and old books wrapped around me like a familiar sweater. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light. I set the deed folder on the coffee table and sank onto the old leather couch, heart still pounding. Nathan had always been the star, the golden boy. Football captain, Ivy League grad, heir to the family business Lane and Curtis Shipping, and a master manipulator if you asked anyone who actually knew him. I was the quiet one, the one who'd chosen art school over an MBA, the one who'd moved back to Silverwood to care for Grandpa during his last years, the one they all pretended not to notice until now. My phone buzzed. A text from my cousin Julia. He's furious. Heads up. Of course he was. Nathan might not know about the deed yet, but he would soon enough. My absence from the will reading had already tipped him off that something wasn't adding up. I grabbed a blanket and curled up by the window, watching the wind ripple across the lake. The calm didn't last long. An hour later, the sound of tires crunching up the drive broke the silence. Then a car door slammed. Heavy footsteps, a sharp knock at the door. I opened it. Nathan stood there, drenched in self-importance leather jacket thrown over his shoulder. We need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Do we... He pushed past me into the foyer without waiting for an invitation, classic. Nathan. Look, he said, pacing. I don't know what game you're playing, but the house goes with the estate. Dad said so. It's mine. I tilted my head, enjoying this more than I should. Actually, it's not. His brow furrowed. What? I grabbed the folder from the coffee table and held it up. Grandpa deeded it to me years ago, legally binding. His face went pale, then flushed. That's impossible, Daddy. Dad didn't own it, I interrupted, voice calm. Grandpa did, and he gave it to me. For a moment, he just stood there, lips twitching. Then, you'll regret this, Harper. You think you can block me? You can't. I'll get my lawyers. I opened the front door wide. By all means, bring them. He stalked out, muttering curses under his breath. As the taillights disappeared down the drive, I exhaled and realized my hands were shaking. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak of the old house felt louder in the dark. My mind spun with possibilities. Would Nathan really drag this into court? Could he? I knew the deed was airtight. I'd had a lawyer friend double-check it years ago. But Nathan never played fair. And if there was one thing he hated, it was losing control. By morning, the first fall rain had begun soft at first, then steadily drumming against the porch roof. I wrapped my hands around a mug of coffee, staring out at the misty lake, trying to settle my nerves. That lasted until a familiar voice pierced the calm. Harper opened the door. We're not done. I set the mug down with a sigh and padded over to the door. There he was again. Nathan. This time with backup Aunt Margaret, all pearls and dramatic scarves, and Cousin Julia umbrella in one hand, oversized sunglasses, hiding a smirk. Good morning, I said sweetly. Didn't expect a full entourage. Margaret pushed past me with barely a glance. Really, Harper, this behavior is beneath you. You're making such a scene. A scene, I echoed. I'm sitting in my own house. Nathan's jaw flexed. Enough games. I've already spoken with Halpern. You can't possibly think this will hold up. Julia lingered by the doorway. He's got a new lawyer now, Harper. Real shark. Good for him. I moved to the fireplace where the deed sat in plain view. But unless that shark can rewrite the past, I think I'm fine. Nathan's voice rose. It was supposed to be mine. The lake house, the legacy. You don't even belong here. You're an outsider to this family. That stung more than I wanted to admit. I drew a slow breath. If being an outsider means not being consumed by greed, fine, Margaret sniffed. Such disrespect. Your poor mother would be heartbroken. At that, something inside me snapped. You mean the mother who never once visited after Grandpa got sick? The one who left me to care for him alone, while you all chased country club galas? The room fell silent. Then Julia, lips quirking, chimed in. She's got a point. Nathan shot her a glare. I softened my voice, though my hands still trembled. This house was Grandpa's heart. He wanted it loved, not leveraged. Nathan's tone dropped to a simmer. Mark my words, Harper, you'll regret standing in my way. With that, he stormed out, Margaret flapping after him. Julia lingered, watching me. Finally, she sighed. For what it's worth, I hope you win. Then she too slipped out into the rain. I sank onto the couch, heart racing. It was clear now Nathan wasn't going to stop. And knowing him, he wouldn't stick to legal channels alone. It was time to prepare. I picked up my phone and called the one person who might help me navigate the storm ahead. Liam Carter, old friend attorney, and one of the few people in town who knew just how ruthless my brother could be. By the time Liam showed up that afternoon, the rain had turned the driveway into a muddy mess. I spotted his old Jeep chugging up the hill through the kitchen window. I opened the door before he could knock. Still raining, huh? He said, shaking droplets from his jacket. His wavy brown hair was damp, and he looked like he'd wrestled with the wind all the way here. Thanks for coming, I said, stepping aside. Coffee's on. Liam and I had known each other since high school, the only two kids in the honors art class who didn't fit in with the prep crowd. He'd gone off to law school and come back to Silverwood after his dad got sick. Good lawyer, better friend. And definitely someone who understood exactly how tangled my family could get. I poured us both coffee and handed him the folder with the deed. Grandpa's signature notarized filed with the county. "It should be solid," I said, watching his face as he flipped through the pages. "It is," Liam agreed. He was smart about this. "Clear title. Precedes your parents' will by years." He leaned back. "Legally, Nathan doesn't have a leg to stand on unless he can prove fraud or coercion." I snorted, "Grandpa coercing me, please." Liam smiled faintly. "Yeah, no judge would buy it, but Nathan's hired Brian Colton." My stomach sank. Colton. That bulldog from Portland. The very one. His specialty is intimidation. He'll dig into everything: your finances, your personal life, even Grandpa's medical records, looking for any excuse. I sat back, rubbing my temples. Of course he would. Liam gave me a steady look. "We can counter. I'll file a quiet title action. Get a judge to confirm your ownership, shut down any claims." "But," he hesitated, "it might get ugly." I blew out a breath. "It's already ugly." He gave a sympathetic nod, then added, "Also, did you know about the missing funds rumor?" That made me blink. "What?" "There's chatter around town that before your dad passed, some money went missing from Lane & Co.'s accounts. Nathan's trying to pin it on." Guess who? My blood ran cold. "Me?" Liam nodded grimly. "Just a rumor, but Colton's good at turning rumors into headlines." I felt a slow burn of fury rising in my chest. Nathan would stoop that low. Liam raised a brow. "It's Nathan." Before I could respond, the front door swung open without a knock. In stormed Aunt Margaret again, umbrella dripping, lips tight. "I demand a family dinner," she announced. "Tonight, at the Old Inn. We will settle this face to face." I stared at her. "A dinner?" Margaret sniffed. "Nathan insists." And frankly, I agree. Air this nonsense before it becomes scandalous. "Too late for that," I muttered. But something about the gleam in her eye told me this was more than a dinner. Nathan was planning something, and I needed to be ready. I met Liam's gaze. "Looks like we've got a date." He gave a crooked smile. "Then let's go ruin their evening." By 7 o'clock that evening, the rain had finally eased, leaving the streets slick and shining beneath the old lamps of downtown Silverwood. The inn, an ivy-clad relic called the Mariner's Rest, looked more like the set of a murder mystery than the backdrop for a family reconciliation. Liam and I arrived a few minutes early. He parked us right out front. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked, giving me a sidelong glance as he killed the engine. I pulled my coat tighter. "We both know this isn't about dinner. It's Nathan's show. Might as well watch him fall on his face." Liam chuckled, spoken like a true Lane. The hostess, recognizing me, led us to the back dining room, an overly ornate space with crystal chandeliers and faded wallpaper. A long table was already set. Nathan sat at the head, sleeves rolled up, oozing confidence. Aunt Margaret and Cousin Julia were there too, along with a few surprise guests. 2 men in tailored suits. One I recognized from the news as Brian Colton, Nathan's new lawyer, and the other a gaunt-faced man who looked more like a private investigator than a dinner guest. Nathan looked up, smug as ever. "Harper," he drawled. "Glad you could make it." I took a seat across from him. Liam sat beside me, stone-faced. "So," I said lightly, "what's on the menu besides thinly veiled threats?" Nathan leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Let's skip the small talk. You've got something that belongs to me? I'm offering you a chance to avoid public embarrassment. Sign the house over and I'll forget the missing funds you've been accused of siphoning." I blinked. "Accused by whom, your reflection?" Colton smirked. "Our forensic accountant has found concerning irregularities." Liam cut in sharply. "Irregularities caused by Nathan's own bookkeeping. I'd advise caution before making false accusations." Nathan's smile faltered. "Are you really willing to drag this through court, Harper? This family's reputation is already a mess," I shot back. "And you seem awfully desperate for someone who supposedly owns everything." Julia, swirling her wine, sighed. "Honestly, Nathan, this is getting pathetic." That earned her a scathing glare. Margaret clutched her pearls. "Enough, both of you. We can resolve this civilly." But the room had shifted. I could feel it. Even Aunt Margaret sensed that Nathan was overplaying his hand. Then the private investigator finally spoke, voice low. "You might want to ask your brother about the old company records and your grandfather's final statements." Nathan stiffened. "What are you talking about?" I narrowed my eyes. "What records?" The man glanced at Colton, who gave a tiny shake of his head, clearly not wanting whatever this was to surface. Liam leaned over, whispering, "He knows something." Before Nathan could recover, Julia set her glass down with a decisive clink. "I'm tired of this. Harper's not stupid. Neither is anyone in this town. Keep pushing, and you'll bury yourself." Nathan slammed his palm on the table. "I will not lose this house." I stood slowly, heart steady now. "Too late, Nathan. You already have." Without waiting for dessert, I walked out, Liam at my side, raincoat in hand. As the door swung closed behind us, I whispered, "He's hiding something." Liam nodded. "Let's find out what." The air outside was cold and damp, but I barely noticed. My mind was racing with questions. "What do you think that investigator meant?" I asked as Liam and I walked to his Jeep. He opened the door for me. Could be a dozen things: shady business deals, missing funds, old family secrets. But it rattled Nathan. "You saw it." I nodded. Nathan wasn't easily rattled. If something made him flinch, it was big. By the time we got back to the lake house, night had settled deep. I lit the fireplace while Liam pulled out his laptop and started combing through old county records. Hours passed. Midnight crept in. I stifled a yawn, thinking about giving up for the night when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something made me swipe. "Hello?" A woman's voice, warm but tense. "Harper Lane." "Yes, who's this?" "My name's Evelyn Grayson. I knew your mother years ago." I sat up straighter. "Okay. I heard about the will, about your brother's actions." A pause. "There's something you should know. About the house. About Nathan." I glanced at Liam, who was now listening intently. "Go on." "I was involved with your mother's estate planning. Quietly. There are documents your brother doesn't want you to see, ones that explain why your grandfather gave you the deed." I swallowed. "Why are you telling me this now?" Her voice softened. "Because your mother wanted you protected. And because Nathan's lawyer, he tried to pay me off to keep quiet." My heart thudded. "Do you still have the documents?" "Yes, but I won't send them electronically, too risky." "Meet me tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., the cafe by the docks." I agreed. We hung up. Liam leaned forward. "You trust her?" "Not entirely, but if what she's saying is true, it could destroy Nathan's case." Morning came gray and misty. I barely touched my coffee, nerves jangling as I drove into town. The cafe was half empty, a few fishermen, a couple of retirees. In the corner sat an elegant woman in her 60s, sharp blue eyes, silver hair, swept back. Evelyn Grayson. I slid into the booth. She gave a small nod and passed me an old leather portfolio. Inside, letters, copies of legal memos, and a journal entry in my mother's hand. "Nathan has been skimming from the company," I told Father. "He's furious, says he'll ensure the house is safe for Harper." My breath caught. Evelyn spoke softly. "Your grandfather knew Nathan was siphoning money. That's why he deeded the house early to shield it." I looked up. "If we show this in court?" "It will ruin Nathan," Evelyn said simply, "but it's your choice." I thought of Nathan's smug face, his threats, his lies. Then I smiled. "I'll use it." Liam was waiting at the lake house when I got back, pacing the porch with a coffee in hand. The moment he saw the portfolio under my arm, his eyebrows shot up. "Good news?" he asked. I nodded, breathless from the cold. "Better than good." Evelyn handed me exactly what we needed. We went inside, spreading the papers out on the long dining table. The fire crackled softly as Liam read through each page, his eyes sharpening with every line. "She wasn't lying," he murmured. This will sink Nathan's entire case, and if the press gets wind of it..." "He's finished," I said quietly, my heart racing. For the next few hours, Liam drafted motions and prepared evidence. We'd already filed for the quiet title action, but now we had ammunition for a counterstrike. And Nathan, he had no idea what was coming. Court was scheduled for that Friday, a hearing before a local judge known for her no-nonsense approach. By the time the morning arrived, word had already spread through Silverwood. Everyone loves a scandal, especially when it involves the Lane family. I arrived early, nerves tight. The courthouse steps were dotted with townsfolk pretending not to eavesdrop. Reporters loitered by the door, clearly tipped off by someone. Probably Cousin Julia. Drama was her currency. Inside the courtroom, I took my seat beside Liam. Across the aisle, Nathan looked smug, though a little less so than usual. His lawyer, Brian Colton, whispered furiously in his ear. The judge entered. Proceedings began. Colton led with accusations, vague hints of financial irregularities, the tired claim that the house should have been part of the estate. Liam let him talk cool as ice. Then our turn came. One by one, Liam introduced the documents, the deed, the letters, the damning journal entry. The room shifted. The judge's gaze sharpened. Colton objected, but the judge waved him off, overruled. When Evelyn Grayson was called to the stand, the atmosphere changed completely. Calm, composed, she laid out the truth, how my grandfather had protected the property, how my mother had feared Nathan's greed. Nathan's face turned redder by the second. Finally, Liam rose for closing remarks. "This is not merely about a house," he said, voice steady. "It's about honoring a man's intent, protecting what was meant to remain safe from those who would exploit it." The judge retired to chambers. For long minutes, the courtroom held its breath. When she returned, her ruling was swift. The deed stands. Harper Lane is the rightful owner of the lake house. All claims against her are dismissed with prejudice. A stunned silence. Then the judge added almost as an afterthought, "And I will be referring Mr. Nathan Lane's conduct to the State Financial Crimes Division for review." Nathan's jaw dropped. Liam and I exchanged a glance, equal parts relief and triumph. As we gathered our things, Julia sauntered over, smirking. "Guess you really are the smart one, Harper." For once, I didn't mind the gossip, because this time I'd won. Outside the courthouse, the air smelled crisp, that rare post-rain freshness that only small towns seem to hold on to. People had gathered on the steps, neighbors, old classmates, nosy reporters. Whispers fluttered like autumn leaves. I stood on the steps, the weight of the last few weeks sinking in. Beside me, Liam grinned. "You did it." I exhaled slowly. We did it. Nathan stormed past us, face like Thunder Colton trailing behind. No smugness now, just a man cornered. Word had already spread. The Financial Crimes Unit was opening an inquiry. Whatever he'd been hiding, it was about to see daylight. Aunt Margaret, to her credit, avoided eye contact. Julia, though, approached with a wry smile. "Drinks on me sometime," she asked. "You earned it?" Maybe I said, the ghost of a smile tugging at my lips. In the days that followed, the storm that had clouded my life began to clear. Nathan's empire started crumbling. The investigation uncovered years of shady dealings, embezzlement, false books, backroom deals. Lane & Coers would never recover its pristine image. And Nathan. He was too busy lawyering up to bother me anymore. As for me, I reclaimed the lake house fully legally and without doubt. I spent those first quiet mornings there with the windows wide open, the lake mist curling inside the old floorboards, creaking in familiar rhythms. I repainted the porch, refinished the old oak banisters, turned the dusty study into a bright new art studio, sunlight streaming in through the big lake-facing windows. My space now, fully mine. And every so often, a letter would arrive from someone I hadn't heard from in years, a former family friend, a neighbor, even an old high school rival. Each one said some version of the same thing. "Good for you, Harper." About time someone stood up to him. Life began to settle. The phone stopped buzzing with drama. I got back to work, new clients coming in, some curious about the infamous house that beat Nathan Lane. Even Julia became an unlikely ally, dropping by with gossip and wine. "Just don't get too comfortable," she teased. "Your family's got a long memory." Maybe so. But I'd learned something. Standing your ground when the world expects you to fold is the sweetest revenge of all. One golden afternoon, I found myself sitting on the porch sketchbook and the lake shimmering beyond the pines. Evelyn Grayson had sent one last note. "Your grandfather would be proud, and your mother too, more than you know." I traced the words with my fingertip and smiled. For the first time in years, the house felt like home. Not a battlefield, not a legacy under siege, just home. And as the sun dipped below the trees, painting the sky in strokes of amber and rose, I whispered into the still air, "It's going to be okay," because sometimes it really is.